The hunger crisis continues, and the lack of food has started a war. Mac is a boy who survived the final sector. He's a member of Yayo's group. He was the smallest of the group and pulled his weight through his sheer tenacity. But unfortunately, Mac was found lifeless. Yayo's group took the loss hard, but everyone knew he died because he was the weakest. Yao and Song vowed to avenge Mac's death. They plan to do so in the same exact way Wall knows the weakest of another group will be eliminated next. After Mac came a member from San's group. This was still just the beginning. Every night someone was found lifeless. Someone from Yayo's group, someone from Young's group, someone from San's group, and someone from Kang's group. All trust was gone, and everyone became a savage. Meanwhile, Wall doesn't have to worry about the food shortage because he'll always have his secret moss. He still hasn't gotten used to the taste, but he's willing to do whatever it takes to survive. So far, the others haven't made their way to Wall's dark room, but this is about to change as Wall hears voices coming from down the hall. He senses at least 4 of them, and he knows their intentions. No one walks through the dark for nothing. Young and a few members from his group are plotting to eliminate Wall. Young feels this is the perfect time to take revenge. But as they were walking, one of Young's members felt a sharp pain in his leg. He falls to the ground as the snake slithers away. His body could not withstand the snake's venom, and he passes away quickly. Young gets angry and begins shouting for Wall. Wall sneaks up behind one of the members and puts him in a chokehold. Young is even more furious now and commands Wall to let go of his friend. Wall contemplates whether or not it'd be a good idea to take his life for a second, but then he proceeds to snap his neck. Wall has eliminated all of Young's men, and Young finally rushes at him. He comes up empty with every attack and loses to Wall. Wall sneaks up behind him and says he won't be taking just one eye this time. Young scrambles a little bit, but asks Wall to wait. He tries to negotiate with Wall and offers to join forces. This confuses Wall, but Young argues Wall won't be able to survive much longer without him. Young senses Wall doesn't like that offer, and counters with agreeing to be his minion. Wall approaches him and says there's no way he could trust him. Young tries to defend himself one last time, but Wall doesn't care. Wall crouches down and releases a huge uppercut on Young. He proceeds to put Young in a chokehold, and he chokes him out. Wall says to himself the reason he took Young's life is because he feels that he is still too weak. After Wall's encounter with Young and his confidants, the rest of his group was disbanded. The other leaders knew it had to be Wall's doing. The leaders discuss and wonder how strong Wall could be. The one thing they know is they don't want to be his enemy. San continues to discuss with his group how far the problem has gone. There's no solving the distribution of food. People are killing to secure food. In the end, everyone has become a murderer. And they know now that Wall has taken out Young. No one will touch him. San turns to his group and orders them not to even think about doing anything to Wall. There's nothing more terrifying than someone with nothing to protect. San's group understands his reasoning. Then another member of the group comes running. He says 2 kids from Yayo's group have been banished and they have a potato. The boy says they have to hurry before they eat it. San can't believe what they're about to do for a potato, but he tells everyone to get ready. San and his group head over to the red house and see the pair with their potato. The group can't wait to move in as they are apparently willing to do anything for a potato. San orders them to attack. The pair sees the group rushing at them, and they try to run, but something feels off to San. With their position, they're at a disadvantage. One of the kids holding the potato sends out a signal by whistling, and out come the members from Yayo's group to attack. San shouts for his group as they get whacked. San tries to get his group to retreat as they have fallen into a trap, but behind San are more members rushing in on him. San is circled, and out comes Yao and Song. They know they have the potential to reduce the amount of mouths to feed right now. San begs them to spare his life at least. Yayo says she'd like to, but they can't afford that much food. San gets worried, and Yayo says he would have done the same if he were in her position. Yayo turns away and orders her team to eliminate them all. As she walks away, she looks up and sees Wall still watching from afar. Wall has learned some of Yayo's tactics, battles using terrain, various shortcuts and tricks, and building placements which make infiltration impossible as long as there is competent security. Yayo just uses this area exactly how those who made it intended it to be used. Wall believes they're trying to use him in a terrain like this someday. And if there's a large house like this, that means this is the manor of a large clan of a very influential figure. The consequences will be massive if they attack this place recklessly. Wall concludes that's why they're using him. He is a tool they can throw away after using once. He was thrown into hell and his nature has been demolished. He is being raised to be an assassin. After eliminating San and his group, members from Yayo's group are rejoicing. They are happy to be on Yayo's team, and Yayo believes no one would dare mess with them now. But from afar, Men is upset. She's upset everyone has gotten so used to murder. Men doesn't understand how they could eat so freely with blood on their hands. Meanwhile, the ceiling begins to open up. Everyone is surprised as this delivery is a little earlier than usual. Yayo orders her group to secure as much food as possible. She's ecstatic as she feels they will finally have enough food to fill their stomachs. But she notices Wall from the corner of her eye. He's not as excited as everyone else and seems wary of something. And when Yayo looks back, she sees why Wall had that look on his face. Instead of a basket of food, masked men have jumped down from the hole. Everyone's confused for a second. But then the masked men immediately start beating them. As everyone's getting beat, Wall lays down and takes cover. He decides not to make a move because he doesn't want to draw attention to himself. Wall then notices the real ones that are commanding the masked men. The real ones halt the beating and the leader introduces himself as the First Sword. He announces to the kids that their lives are now in his hands, and there are no exceptions. One of Yayo's members tries to protest, and instantly suffers the consequences. Wall grimaces as he knows things are about to change. Later on, the real ones are meeting behind closed doors in the village. They are discussing curse poison. When you place poisonous organisms into one jar, they will eat each other until only one remains. The last one remaining possesses the most potent poison. The real ones are trying to figure out the child in the group with the most potent poison. The First Sword asks which one of the kids is worth paying attention to, and his associate, the Second Sword, responds Yayo. She leads the largest group and has the greatest influence over the others. If they do not crush her spirit, she will become much harder to deal with in the future. The First Sword demands that Yayo receive special attention. He doesn't want her to even dream of a rebellion. The Second Sword says Sung and Kang are also worth paying attention to because of their outstanding martial arts. Then the First Sword asks of the sole survivor from Sector 1, Wall. The Second Sword notifies him that Wall is still alive. The First Sword is impressed as Sector 1 had the least amount of food and the poorest conditions. He wants them to pay very close attention to Wall as well. As the meeting ends, the First Sword thinks to himself how there are only 6 years left to complete their mission. The Blood Shadow group was given an assassination mission with a duration of 7 years and a reward of 500,000 yang. The only condition was to not leave a single trace related to the Blood Shadow group behind. For the next round of training, one of the masked men announces the group's next objective. He says the one who reaches the flag at the top of the house the fastest will receive a 2-hour break, and the one who reaches the flag last will be taught what true hell is. The race was on. The merciless days continued for the trainees. Their days were filled with non-stop training. They had to do whatever it took to survive, especially if they wanted to see the outside world again. And of course, the winner of the race was Yayo. The real ones discussed the challenge from afar. They know Yayo's intelligence is outstanding, and her guts are top-notch. The First Sword asks about Wall, and the Second Sword reports that Wall is average. He hasn't shown anything that distinguishes him from the rest. This surprises the First Sword, but he wants them to keep watching Wall. Later on, Yayo approaches Wall. She's confused as to why he's still reviewing the thunder-splitting cultivation technique, though the instructors are no longer making them read about the technique. Wall felt like reviewing it anyways. Yayo doesn't see the point and heads to bed. Wall recalls the lesson from the real ones. They said the thunder-splitting cultivation technique is a technique that they should be able to learn in 3 months if they acquaint themselves with the first process. Their body will be reborn as one that can feel chi and accumulate internal energy. Wall feels that the others, along with the instructors, don't grasp the full concept of the technique. Since it's not humanly possible to physically split thunder, the concept may be referring to the speed of your thoughts. Wall thinks if he can learn the technique with this interpretation in mind, he should be able to gain something different than he has already. But he still must never show how much he's learned. He cannot stand out for being too exceptional or too lacking. Everything has been going according to plan, until Wall is forced to dodge a blade going for his throat. Wall can't believe one of the other trainees actually tried to kill him. Wall asks why he's doing this, and Yoke responds, saying he wants to have some fun. Wall considers taking him up on his challenge as the instructors seem like they couldn't care less. Wall draws his blade and Yoke rushes at him. Wall dodges every attack and is surprised by the amount of effort Yoke is putting into this fight. He won't give up the fight, and Wall has had enough. Wall begins countering and the instructor is now impressed. But Yoke wants Wall's best effort and now Wall is left with no choice. Wall drops his knife and kicks Yoke right in the chest. As these two are fighting, the first sword is discussing with the second sword how fast the group has improved. The second sword thinks they only need 5 years instead of 7, but the first sword is disappointed with how much his second sword has underestimated their target. Their target is the man who possesses the most talent in all of Sichuan. Wall completely manhandles his opponent. Wall snaps his arm, and the boy drops down in tears. The real ones wait to see what happens next, and Wall does nothing. Now, one of the masked men approaches Wall and asks if he did this. Wall replies yes, and a sword is instantly drawn to his neck. Wall didn't even see the sword come in and was shocked that a human could move so quickly. Wall is panicking as he wonders if he did something wrong, but the masked man pulls his sword back and says to Wall, "An assassin must never leave a trace behind under any circumstance. Leaving a trace by breaking an arm like that is nothing more than letting your opponent know of your identity." He wants Wall to keep this in mind for the future. Wall lets out a huge sigh of relief as the masked man walks away. 6 years later, one of the masked men is walking through the village. He's looking for the trainees as their objective is to hide from him. He spots one and warns him that he'd be dead if this were real. He moves on to search for more. The trainer knows no matter how much they've learned, an inexperienced assassin's turtle breathing technique is bound to be noticeable. He easily spots another, and that's another failed test. He continues walking as his goal is to find the last person in this zone. The masked man scans the area, but he can't find anyone. He feels someone may have made a mistake and said there was an extra person in this test. He calls for someone to come out if anyone remains. And to his surprise, right next to him is Wall. Wall has clearly passed this test and asks for a break. Wall is granted his break, but the trainer is still in disbelief. Wall returns to the house and finds Yayo and the others. Yoke is excited to see him and asks what he's doing there. Wall is annoyed by the different faces Yoke makes and tells him he's going to forget what his real face looks like one day. Yoke says it doesn't matter as they'll never leave this place anyways. But Yayo interrupts and says the quality of the food has been getting better. She believes they'll be given their mission soon.